let me know. I'm not opposed if we're traveling down the road and you see something that you're curious about. Hey, Clarky, what's that? You know, that type of thing. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, so basically our itinerary is this. Now it's the same highway going up to Whistler as it is returning this evening. So we find, rather than give you, half the commentary on the way up and half on the way back, we'll give it all on the way up. Now when we return tonight, it's going to be at the end of a fairly long day. And again, I don't think you want to hear me continue on talking, and so we're going to give you everything on the way up. We're going to have a nice leisure ride on the way home. In approximately 45 minutes to 1 hour, we will arrive at our first stop, which will be Shannon Falls. All right, we'll give you some time there to wander up and view the falls, wander around a little bit, use the washrooms, and then we'll carry on. Second stop will be the Sea to Sky Gondola. Now the Sea to Sky Gondola, everybody will be given a lift ticket. Okay, part of the fee that you paid to come on the tour does include your lift ticket. We'll spend a good hour and 45 minutes, maybe even 2 hours at the Sea to Sky Gondola. And then we'll reboard the bus and carry on up to Whistler. Traveling from the Sea to Sky Gondola to Whistler, once again, is expected to be about 45 to an hour. So hopefully it doesn't come as a surprise. We won't actually arrive in Whistler till 1:30, perhaps even closer to 2 o'clock. When we arrive in Whistler, we will start the clock, and you'll have 4 leisure hours to do whatever it is you wish to do while you're in Whistler. Just keep in mind, folks, whatever you choose to do in Whistler will be at your expense. After we've enjoyed 4 beautiful hours in Whistler, we'll reboard the bus for the journey back into Vancouver. Again, the trip into Vancouver will be basically just a transfer from Whistler back into Vancouver. A chance to just enjoy the beautiful views, catch up a little bit of sleep. Typically, we'll get into Vancouver anytime between 7:30, 7:40-ish, maybe as late as 8:15. Alright, now that is the hotel drops. I'm not saying we'll arrive in Vancouver and then we make all the hotel drops. You don't get to your hotel till 9 p.m. No, that's not. We'll start the drop-offs by about 7:30-ish, and typically the last person has gotten off the bus just before 8 o'clock. Alright, so that's kind of what the day looks like. Now, as far as some of the amenities on the bus, all the seats will recline. If you haven't found the recline button yet, if you're seated in the aisle seat, okay, I collapse all the armrests at the end of the day. It's just easier to tidy the bus, easier for you to get in and out of the seats in the morning. However, if you would like an armrest and you're seated in the aisle, reach down on your side there along the seat cushion. There's a gray armrest. Just pull it all the way up. It'll kind of hyperextend. When you push it down, it'll lock into a nice comfortable position. If at any time you want that armrest gone, just pull it back all the way up into the hyperextension and then push it down and it'll collapse down into the hidden area it was when you boarded the bus. Underneath that armrest, when it's collapsed, is your recline handle. Alright, just a gray plastic grip, so to speak. Just lift that up a little bit. Now it's on a hinge, so it's not going to lift, but it's going to hinge upwards and then put some pressure on the seat back, and the seat back will recline. If you're seated against the wall of the bus, there's a black extension handle between the cushion you're seated on and the wall of the bus. Push that towards the back. Again, apply some pressure to the seat rather than turn left, which we will do. Again, if we were to proceed straight, that would take us into the British properties. once again, that's that area that the bridges are responsible for being built, and that is the area where the Guinness family purchased and turned into the community known as Upper Levels. So folks, now we're going to get on to the Trans-Canada Highway. Now in Canada, we nickname all of our highways. We typically have a number for the highway and a nickname. So this used to be known as the 401, Highway 401. It's now simply called Highway 1. Its nickname is the Trans-Canada Highway. Now the reason they call it that, it runs the entire length of Canada. From way over on the east side, from St. John's, Newfoundland, all the way over to Victoria, British Columbia. The entire length of the highway is 4,860 miles long. Now, if you want to travel the entire length of the Trans-Canada Highway, you have to take 2 ferries. There's a ferry from St. John's to Newfoundland, and then there's a ferry here in about 13 kilometers that will take you to Vancouver Island, where the last 60 miles of the Trans-Canada Highway is located. Yeah, if you get a little peek through the trees here, you'll be able to look back at the city a little bit. You'll probably see a whole bunch of cargo ships moored there. So what they're doing is they're waiting to either go into the port and unload, or they're going into the port to pick up their cargo. So that area where you see them out on the left side, that is known as the outer harbor. Again, they've arrived, they've contacted the port and said, hey, I'm here. Port says, I'm sorry, we got no space for you, just drop anchor, hang out a couple of days and we'll get you in, get your stuff. The port is very important to us here in Vancouver. It's one of our main industries. In fact, if you include the cruise ship, all the services and everything that the cruise ships have, we have the second busiest port in North America. Second only to Los Angeles. If you count only cargo, we're the 3rd busiest port. Now I mentioned the Grouse Mountain and the 3 local ski mountains. I'm going to come up on another one here in just a moment. Now you're not going to see it because it's quite high up the hill, and you don't actually see the ski area until you get up over the ridge, and then there's a bowl there that they call Cypress Bowl. Now the reason I mention this is during the 2010 Olympics, which many of you probably know, Vancouver and Whistler were co-hosts to that. So most of the Nordic events, such as the giant slalom, the ski jump, the bobsled, all that took place in Whistler. Vancouver hosted the arena events, such as ice hockey, figure skating. Now, we did have one Nordic event on Cypress Bowl, or Cypress Mountain as it's called. It was the freestyle event. So that's where you go down a hill, you go over a jump, and you do all kinds of spins and turns, and then you're rated on the level of difficulty and how well you perform the stunt. So again, that took place right here at Cypress Bowl. Now, our winter of 2010 was extremely mild. Even the snow conditions in Whistler weren't great. They had decent snow, so they did hold the events. But here at Cypress Bowl, the only way for them to hold that event was to bring snow in from the eastern part of British Columbia, about 500 miles away. They brought it in refrigeration trucks. They had the jumps and the runs all pre-made out of bales of hay. And then they all covered it with a nice thick layer of snow, enabling them to hold the event. Now, I talked a wee bit about BC ferries, how, if you want to travel the entire length of the Trans-Canada Highway, you have to take the ferry. We are very reliant on the ferry system here on the BC coast. Due to the many long inlets and fjords, A lot of our coastal communities, there are no roads to them. You know, rather than have a road go all the way up an inlet, you know, maybe 10 or 15 miles of paved road, go up an inlet, and then come all the way back down the other inlet to get to the coast, they just connect that inlet with a ferry. I'll give you an example. I'm originally from Powell River. Beautiful little community, 90 miles north of Vancouver, only accessible by ferry or plane. Right? There's no road to Powell River. It is on the mainland, but there's no road there. Again, due to the long inlets and the challenging terrain, the mountain terrain. Now, because of this, again, being connected with all these ferries, we have the largest ferry fleet in North America. We have the second largest fleet in the world. Only Norway has a larger ferry system than we have here in British Columbia. One of our busiest routes is to Vancouver Island. Vancouver Island, of course, is where Victoria is. Victoria is the capital of British Columbia. So those ferries going to Vancouver Island, especially in the summertime, extremely busy. Not unusual to show up at the ferry and then have them say, you have a 3 sailing wait. In other words, there's so many vehicles waiting to get on the ferry, you're going to sit for 3 ferries before you're able to get on. Now it's a ferry every 2 hours. The BC Ferry. Now the ferries that are on this route, again, this is one of our busiest routes. They'll hold up to 1,100 people, 360 vehicles. It takes 1 hour and 40 minutes to cross the Strait of Georgia, which is 26 miles to Vancouver Island. Now folks, I mentioned the highways and the nicknames. We're on the Trans-Canada Highway. We've actually just left the Trans-Canada Highway. Remember, it takes the ferry over to Vancouver Island. So that's on our right side. You're going to go down a steep hill, and that's where you wait to get onto the ferry. We have now left the Trans-Canada Highway. We're on Highway 99, Highway 99. Now the nickname of this highway is the Sea to Sky Highway. What a beautiful name. Very inviting. What are you doing today? Nothing. Let's go for a drive on the Sea to Sky Highway. Now the reason they call it this is the first half of our journey, as far as Squamish, we're going to follow along the ocean or the sea. Alright, so this is the sea portion of the Sea to Sky Highway. When we leave Squamish, we will start climbing into the hills of Whistler, and that is known as the Sky portion of the Sea to Sky Highway. Now, Vancouver and Whistler to co-host the 2010 Winter Olympics was the highway. All right, the Olympic Committee, they didn't like the fact that it was going to take almost 3 hours to drive from Vancouver to Whistler. That was provided we had no issues with inclement weather, no bridge washouts, no slides, no accidents. So again, for us to be able to co-host the 2010 Winter Olympics, our government from 2007 to 2010 spent $600 million and upgraded the highway.
What's that island in the middle?
So that is the Pacific Ocean on your left-hand side. I'm not sure. I heard someone talking. Was that a question?
Yeah, there's an island.
Oh, the island. That's Anvil Island. That little island. A lot of what you're seeing out there is the mainland. All right. As mentioned, now there's a ferry just in behind us that will take you to the Sunshine Coast. I'm going to show you that in just a few minutes. Back to the highway for just a moment. Again, we had a lot of issues with accidents, rock slides, bridge washouts. So the government spent all this money The majority of this highway prior to all the money being spent was basically one lane in each direction. Sure, there was the occasional passing lane, and that's what caused a lot of our problems. People would be following a motorhome or a beer truck on its way to Whistler. It's full of beer, so it's very heavy, and it'd be very slow going up some hills. So people would take chances. You know, they'd be following this truck at half the speed limit for 30 minutes. And then, I gotta get past this guy. And they would pass in areas they shouldn't, often causing head-on collisions. There's no hospitals, there's no stores. It's basically a retirement community, residential community. People that still work here, they would drive into Vancouver every day, which is only about a half-hour drive, 40-minute drive. Now, the thing I like about Lions Bay is because it's so steep here, everybody has a view. You know, where I live, it's flat. So if I look out a window, I see my neighbor's house. Here, because everything's built on the edge of a cliff, everybody has a ocean view. Have a look on the right side. You'll see some older homes that are, you know, obviously been built for a while, and there's some new homes being built, but they're all built kind of above each other. Everybody has a beautiful view of the Pacific Ocean. Now I'm going to give you one more idea of what they're doing to try to prevent debris torrents or bridge washouts. This is a very simple design. What they've done here is they've cemented in big rocks into the bed of the river. So I use this as if anyone skis, for instance, a normal river would be a green or a blue run, right? Water comes down that river as fast as it can. There's nothing to obstruct it. Here, now look through the glass vents on the right. You'll see all the big cement rocks that I talked about that are cemented into the riverbed. All right, so what they do, again, back to skiing. If it's a green run, so the green run is typically a riverbed, right? Water goes down as fast as it can, nothing to obstruct it. Now, by putting in those big rocks, they've made that green ski run into a black diamond, right? Full of moguls. Now, when you ski on a black diamond, you have to come down very carefully and calculate it because of the big mounds of snow. You kind of bounce from one mogul to the other. So you're coming down at a very slow, controlled speed. Basically, that's what those rocks are doing. The water can't come rushing down all at once now. It's bouncing from rock to rock. So it's losing its force, it's losing its volume. So that's the idea with that. I want to show you a little house here. Ideally, this would be where I live. Now, again, Powell River, right on the coastline, done a lot of fishing and swimming and, you know, all the water sports as I grew up. This little house I'm going to show you, it is right down here. As I make this left turn in the highway, look down on the water. You can see a little house there. It's got a big cement deck with a pool in it. The cement deck actually hangs over the ocean. Have a look right there on your left. Doesn't that look magnificent? So, now it's a year and a half ago. I was doing the tour. I pointed that house out. I got up to the falls. Gentleman says, "Hey, Clarky, you could buy that house." I chuckled. Sure enough, I look on the real estate guide. That house was for sale. Anybody care to guess what that house, you know, what they think that house might sell for? 12 million? 25 million. Oh, I'm going to show you something here. Look on your right side, folks. See that big slash? That was our most recent slide. That happened in October. Unfortunately, 2 people lost their lives. There was a house there. It was in the path of the slide. Now they found the man pretty much the same day the slide happened. And it was about a week later that it did not sell. I haven't checked this year. I'll have to do that again as a follow-up. I know that the previous year when it was on for 25 million, it never sold. It came back the next year for a very affordable 19 million. All right, again, I'll do some research. I'm not sure if that house is sold or what it did sell for, but it's very expensive here in Vancouver and in Canada in general. You know, a lot of the the homes in Vancouver. You're not going to buy a home in downtown Vancouver for under $1.5 million, and that's going to be a teardown. You know, if you're spending $1.5 million on a house in Vancouver, you're going to have to do some renovations to it. It's not really, you know, some people might live in it, but it's you definitely would need some upgrades and whatnot. Very expensive here. See all this netting or fencing hanging down off the rock cliff to our right? That's just to help stabilize the bank. All right, so if you get a chance and you look into the rock face, you'll see it's all cracked and fractured. It's not like solid rock. So they put that fencing down. If anything is to chip off that base of that rock, it's not going to fall onto the highway. So that fencing stabilizes it, or holds it against the side of the mountain. Now, if they have a big slide, that fencing's not going to hold it up. The fencing and everything else will come down. So that fencing is basically just to help, not slides, but rock fall. So a small amount of rock breaking off the cliffside. Folks, going to talk to you again just about the contour of the land here again. Now, if you were to measure, to the south of us is the state of Washington. To the north of British Columbia is the state of Alaska. So in between those two American states is British Columbia, the BC coastline. If you were to measure the distance, just in a straight line, all right? So basically from Washington state to Alaska state, in between that area, BC coastline, it's 600 miles in a straight line. If you were to follow the contour of the land, of the mainland, so I'm not talking about going around any islands, but just following the mainland in and out of these long fjords, that 600-mile distance would become 16,000 miles. So again, that gives you an idea of the long inlets. Paper mill. Now the pulp and paper mill was located on the west side of Howe Sound. We're traveling on the east side. All right, so this pulp and paper mill was on the other side of the Pacific Ocean, basically. This body of water to our left, and I'll show you where that was in a little bit. So for the people that lived in Squamish, or the people that worked at wood fiber, they would take a ferry every day from the base of Shannon Falls across the inlet over to wood fiber. So when they had this big rock slide that closed the highway, you know, there's a lot of people that commute every day to and from Vancouver for work. Squamish, Vancouver, Vancouver, Squamish. So when this slide, it was midday. A lot of people had gone into Vancouver to work, and now they were stuck. They couldn't get home. And again, that alternative route, not much of an alternative route. First of all, it's going to take you about 8 hours if you even make it. Because you got to go about 4 hours east, and then you start to backtrack in towards Whistler. But again, that's Portal Cove there on your left side. Folks, here's a great example of what the old highway used to look like. All right, this area right here. As you can see, the cliff is basically hanging right over top of the road. So if anything was to fall off the cliff on our right, it's going to land on the vehicle or on the road. Very narrow here. You know, no passing lanes. And this was typically 90% of the highway was like this, prior to all the money being spent in upgrading the highway. You know, it's a little bit narrow. You might say, it doesn't look that bad. Well, it's not, but let's say it snowed. Now we got, 3 inches of snow. We got a strong wind coming off the ocean, pushing the bus around. It becomes a little bit more of a challenge. So we're coming into a little community here. It's known as Fury Creek. Fury Creek. Much like Lions Bay, no businesses here. There's a golf course. And that's about it. It's a golfing community. Now, it's a little bit famous because if anybody has seen the movie Happy Gilmore,
Yes.
most of that movie was filmed right here at Fury Creek. In fact, if you've seen the movie, do remember one particular scene, quite funny. Adam Sandler having a fist fight with Bob Barker. Yeah, that took place right there on your left-hand side. This is like the signature hole for the golf course. Beautiful hole there, as you can see, water on three sides. So again, that movie was called Happy Gilmore. If you've not seen it, especially if you're a golf enthusiast, because it is kind of a golf movie, if you haven't seen it, do watch it. It's extremely funny. It's about a 30-year-old movie now, maybe even a 40-year-old movie. Happy Gilmore. Folks, well, I got a couple of minutes. There's nothing to say for a couple of minutes here. I'm going to see anybody in that water till at least June. Even in the heat of the summer, mostly people are on flotation devices. You don't see too many of them submerged in the water. The water's quite cold. So, I'm going to talk a little bit about Shannon Falls because we're about 5 minutes to Shannon Falls. And pretty much right on time, 9 minutes before 10. We're expected here at 10 o'clock. So Shannon Falls are the third highest waterfalls in British Columbia. They fall from a height of just over 1,000 feet. It's 335 meters. Now, you're not going to find too much. If you're feeling like you need a coffee or snacks, you're not going to find too much here at Shannon Falls. The next stop we make, which is just 5 minutes further up the road when we depart here, will be the Sea to Sky Gondola. They've got lots of food and breakfast sandwiches and coffee and all kinds of stuff at the Sea to Sky Gondola. So again, if you're starting to feel it's almost time for a coffee or a snack, hang in there. The next stop will have a lot of opportunities. Now, having said that, as you start to walk up towards the falls, pretty much at the beginning of the trail, you'll see a little wooden shack on the left side. That's kind of an information center, and it's kind of hit and miss, but sometimes they'll have coffee on, sometimes they won't. They may have some bags of chips or something like that. You know, they got lots of gifts and stuff, but very little in the way of food. So let's talk about the falls for a moment. There's two viewing platforms. The first one is very easily accessible. Now, I didn't see anybody with any mobility issues today, so I think we're all pretty good at walking at least short distances. All right, so once you start on the trail, it's a circular trail. It's going to bring you right back, so you don't have to go, 3/4 of the way and backtrack. Just keep going the same direction on the trail, and it'll bring you right back down to the bus. The loop. If you're just to walk the loop without stopping for any photos or anything, I'm just trying to give you an idea of how long it would take. It's about a 15-minute walk. 15-minute casual walk. Now, they have us here for 45 minutes. That gives you an opportunity to take some photos, take your time. There's washroom facilities here. All right, so we want to leave here no later than 10:45. Having said that, if you're all back at 10:30, we'll carry on to the Sea to Sky Gondola. So don't hurry.
এই যে এখানে দেখা যাচ্ছে শ্যানন ফলস, রোদের জন্য ঠিকভাবে দেখা যাচ্ছে না।
Yeah.
উপরের দিকে যাচ্ছি।
I was like, no, this still has some value.
কি সুন্দর, অনেক উপর থেকে তুলতেছি। এখানে মিস্ট আসতেছে গায়ে।
Not telling you any fibs. The rail line from Squamish to Vancouver was not built until the late 1950s. So the rail line I'm talking about, once again, was north and east of here, and it was built down into Squamish, completed in 1910. Although it was not extended into Vancouver until almost 1960. Around about the same time the highway was built, 58, 56, right in that area is when both the road and the train line was completed. Now, there was no urgency to have the road built or to extend the rail line into Vancouver. And the reason being is they had the Pacific Ocean. The earliest mode of transportation was by sea. So anything that was going from here towards Vancouver up until the late 50s went by ocean. I just want to point out real quick on your right-hand side, that is what is known as the Chief. Its official name is Squamish Chief. It is granite, one of the largest pieces of granite in the world, and very popular with rock climbers. Again, it's a little early in the season. I did see some people at the Shannon Falls area that had their climbing equipment, but obviously, as it gets warmer and it gets a little bit brighter earlier, we start to see them more so at 10 o'clock when we're there. Right now, I think that they're probably climbing more towards the afternoon, 11, 12 o'clock-ish. That's why we haven't seen too many today. So you just had a little bit of a glimpse on the left-hand side. That is the community of Squamish. And again, it primarily started to be built once the rail line was completed to here. Now, it had other industries that helped it along. The pulp and paper mill, which I mentioned, is just on the other side of Howe Sound. They had a rail car manufacturing company. Because this was the end of the rail line, they employed a lot of people in the rail industry. They had a very large sawmill. Logging was another huge industry that helped build this area into a community. Now, unfortunately, all of those industries are gone today, right? The pulp paper mill shut. The sawmill shut about 15, 20 years ago. There's still some logging, but not like it used to be. And, of course, when they extended the rail line into Vancouver, they no longer needed all those rail employees here. It wasn't the end of the line, it was just a stopover. So most of those people relocated into Vancouver. The rail car manufacturing company shut down. So you're probably saying to yourself, Clarky, what's everybody do then? What do they do for a living? You just told us that all the industries are gone. Well, the number one industry in Squamish is tourism. The number two industry in Squamish is construction. Number 3 is social services, government agencies. So you don't have any of those in Whistler, right? You can't get your driver's license in Whistler. You can't get your passport in Whistler. It's all done here in Squamish. Now, I said construction is one of the main industries. As mentioned earlier, the vacancy rate very low here. So they're hoping to solve that problem. You're going to see as I come down the hill on your left-hand side, rows and rows of townhouses and condominiums. They've been building for the last 5, 6, 7 years. A lot of these have just opened. You can see a crane in the middle of them, so they're obviously still building there. There's another huge construction project coming up on our right-hand side. It will be commercial and residential. So, and again, of course, just across Howe Sound, they've got those presently 400, expected to be 800 employees that will be working on the LNG site. So again, construction in this area is just booming. Due to our shortage of housing, we have a thing right now our government it's called BC Builds. BC Builds. They're encouraging communities, if you have the space, build homes. They're giving some kind of an incentive for communities to build homes. So obviously Squamish wants to be a big part of that. Their population in the last 8 to 10 years is extended 22%. And they're expected to get another 22% population over the course of the next 7 or 8 years. So you might say, well, how many people does that equal to? Well, the population of Squamish is 26,000 people. So not a huge community, but slowly building and building and building. Squamish, now you'll see a lot of, because again, tourism, that type of thing is one of their main industries. You'll see a lot of restaurants, gas stations, that type of thing. Also, because it's fairly affordable to live here in Squamish, if you compare Vancouver or going north of here, Whistler. Whistler is very expensive for housing. Now, because of that, a lot of people will live here in Squamish, much more affordable, but they will commute. So a lot of people that live in Squamish, they either commute to Vancouver every day, it's about an hour's drive, or they'll commute to Whistler every day for their job. It's about 45 minutes to Whistler. All right, so again, it's considered a very affordable bedroom community to both Whistler and Vancouver. We are at 3 meters above sea level right here. So it's very, very low here. We're going to start the climb very soon, as mentioned. We're going to go the sea to sky highway, so we're going to start the sky portion here soon. The village in Whistler. That's right, yeah. Yeah, so again, if we were to cut through these trees on the left, it's probably another half mile up, but then straight through these trees on the left, you'd come to Jack's Bar. So, folks, I'm going to talk to you for a few minutes about Whistler Village, and what to expect. So, I know that we've had a couple of people that have been there, so you're probably well aware of them.
আমাদের উইসলার থেকে ব্যাক করছি, এটা আমাদের শেষ ভিডিও। প্যাসিফিকের ভিউটা দেখেন। প্যাসিফিকের এরকম ওশেনের ভিউ কখনো দেখছেন? তো ওশেনের সামনে আবার বিরাট পর্বতমালা নিয়ে দ্বীপ দাঁড়ায় আছে। British Columbia Starwood. সবাই ভালো